Yadkripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya. So 323.4.5 sorry 323 text 4 and 5 Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhagavatam 323.4.5 Savai Devarshivariastam
Save Devarshivayastam
Manavim Samanubratam
Manavim Samanogatam
Daivad Gariyasa Patyur
Devagariyasa Patyo
Ashasana Mahashisha
Ashashana Mahashishata
Kalena Bhuyasa Kshamam
Kalena Bhuyasa Kshama
Karshitam Vratacharyaya
Karshitam Vatacharya
Premagad Gadaya Vacha
Premagat Gadaya Vacha
Pidita Kripaya Bravit.
Pidita Kripaya Bhati.
We'll just continue. Actually, one person can recite.
Save Devarshya Rishavariyastam Manavim Samanogratam Devana Deva Devat Gariyasa Patyut Premagat Devasi Shasanam Asasanam Mahashishaha Kalena Bhuyasa Kshama Karshitam Vratacharya Premagat Daya Vacha Piditaha Kripaya Brave.
Saha, he, Kardama. Why? Certainly. Deva Rishi of the celestial sages. Varyaha, the foremost. Tam, her. Manavim, the daughter of Manu. Samanu Vratam, fully devoted. Daivat, than Providence. Gari Yasaha, who was greater. Patyu, from her husband. Ashasanam, Ashasanam, expecting. Maha Ashishaha, great blessings. Kalena Bhuyasa, Kalena Bhuyasa, for a long time. Kshamam, weak. Karshitam, emaciated. Vrata Charyaya, by religious observances. Prema, with love. Gadgadaya, stammering. Vacha, with a voice. Piditaha, overcome. Kripaya, with compassion. Abravit, he said, translation purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than Providence. Thus, she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of the celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Purport: Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The wife is expected to be of the same category as the husband. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then there will be happy life. If the husband is a devotee and the wife is materialistic, there cannot be any peace in the home. The wife must see the tendencies of the husband and must be prepared to follow him. From Mahabharata, we learn that when Gandhari understood that her would-be husband, Dhritarashtra, was blind, she immediately began to practice blindness herself. Thus, she covered her eyes and played the part of a blind woman. She decided that since her husband was blind, she must also act like a blind woman. Otherwise, she would be proud of her eyes and her husband would be seen as inferior. The word samanu brata indicates that it is a duty of a wife to adopt the special circumstances in which the husband is situated. Of course, if the husband is as great as Kardam Muni, then a very good result accrues from following him. But even if the husband is not a great devotee like Kardam Muni, it is the wife's duty to adapt herself according to his mentality. That makes married life very happy. It is also mentioned herein that by following the strict vows of a chaste woman, Princess Devahuti became very skinny and therefore her husband became compassionate. He knew that she was the daughter of a great king, and yet she was serving him just like an ordinary woman. She was reduced in health by such activities, and he became compassionate and addressed her as follows. Last time, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai. So again, I beg the non-duplicitous mercy of all the devotees. It's a very august assembly, and I'm very fortunate to be in the midst of such exalted devotees who are very careful in their Krishna conscious activities. So, actually, this verse is very, very wonderful because we can see the verse from different perspectives. So, that's the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, that Prabhupada writes the same purport for different levels of persons. So, of course, for this situation, like here, Prabhupada is quoting Gandhari, that the wife must adopt the special circumstances, the specific circumstances of the husband. So, that's very important. So that way, there will be no fighting, no quarrel. And we can see this in the example of great devotees also. And this is a very important principle because when we read this, what do we remember? We remember Prabhupada's quote. Prabhupada quotes, "How should a devotee want to serve Krishna?" Prabhupada says, devotees should desire to serve Krishna just like, I don't have any realization on this because perhaps I'm not in this situation, but Prabhupada is quoting that a wife should serve Krishna like this, or a devotee should serve Krishna like this, that just like a wife who has another lover, so she does everything perfectly at home, and Shri Radha Gopi Jana Vallabh Tapadan Gaur Hari Jai Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So she does everything perfectly at home to ensure that her husband doesn't doubt her. But at the same time, in the core of her heart, she's always thinking how she can please, how she can serve the Lord of her heart, Shri Krishna. So for a wife who is in a little difficult situation, then they can take solace in this example and they can do. And actually, the wife or the lady of the house is most important person in any household, because she is the one who cooks the food stuff. And like the consciousness with which the food stuff is cooked is very, very important. Very, very important. His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj says, Radha Govind Maharaj says that while seva we should not talk. We should not talk. That's why it's recommended even in our temple in the kitchen while cooking, just put lecture. Because if we speak some mundane things, then that's going to go into the food stuff and is going to spoil the consciousness of those who eat the food stuff. After some time in Krishna consciousness, we actually realize that what pleases us is not the food, not the taste, it's the consciousness. Like if you had the opportunity to eat food, prasad cooked by very exalted devotees even one time, you can understand this principle. It's not that there is so much spice or there is so much, no, it's a consciousness. The consciousness satisfies the soul, and consciousness is a real thing which gives pleasure to us. When we come in contact with someone with a very high consciousness, then we immediately become happy because that's what our soul wants. So it's not about the taste so much. So that's very important. Like the wife, she should take cooking as like a very important service. Like it's not, uh, I mean, anyone who is cooking in a temple or at home is very, very important service. It's not just like, okay, just, cook something, whatever, just throw it in the thing and just, no, it's not like that. Consciousness is very, very important. And that's why, that service should be performed a lot of devotion. And the only way you can perform devotion is when you hear, and then you contemplate, and in that contemplative mood, you cook. And then when you cook in that mood, then it will be accepted by Krishna. And when it is accepted by Krishna and Krishna relishes it, then definitely then it is actually Krishna's mercy. So just actually, I have full faith that just by, even if the husband is not a devotee at all, if the wife very lovingly cooks the food stuff and offers to Krishna with a loving heart, then definitely, without a doubt, the husband's heart will change over a period of time. There's no doubt, because prasad is very, very potent, and it is potent to the extent that the devotee who is cooking cooks in the correct consciousness. So if he cooks in the proper consciousness, then definitely, it's like we see the example. What an amazing Chaitanya Charitamrita is so inspiring. Raghav Pandit, what was his consciousness? Raghav Pandit, when he was offering something to the deity, then he was so careful. He was so careful that even if something was little contaminated, he would again go all the way so many miles to bring fresh coconut or fresh whatever it is. So when one maintains such high level of cleanliness of consciousness, and he's very conscious of his consciousness, and he renders service in that pure consciousness, then naturally Krishna accepts that thing. So it's very, very powerful. So on one level, that can be seen on one level. On another level, we can see how actually the wife here is representing a disciple. So disciple and the spiritual master. So the disciple, so the theme of today's discussion is actually austerity and compassion. So in Vaishnav society, the seniors, they showered love and compassion on the juniors, and the juniors have a desire to serve the seniors. So this is the way Vaishnav society works. So in the same way, between any senior and junior Vaishnav, whether it's guru disciple or senior and junior Vaishnav, this etiquette is very important. Etiquette is very important. So the first topic of today's discussion is actually austerity or penance. So his Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj says that you don't get austerity, you don't get Krishna by doing austerity. But what happens is, when a devotee sincerely does austerity to please Krishna, then then Krishna's heart melts, seeing that the devotee is doing so much to attain me. He's such a desire to attain me. He's trying so hard. So seeing that Krishna's heart melts and Krishna becomes merciful. So that's the point. So this human life is meant for austerity, is meant for tapasya, because this body is a wonderful instrument for suffering. Is a really amazing instrument, best instrument for suffering. And we are in a place, I mean, wonderful instrument to receive pain, and we are in a place of suffering. Dukhalem ashashvatam. We are in this world. So it's a perfect combination. If you want to enjoy your senses, then you can see, you can experience, you can hear how difficult it is to enjoy your senses, like to enjoy sense gratification. It's so difficult. So therefore, this human body is given for tapasya. So tapasya means that the heart, we're trying to purify the heart. That is tapasya. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jifa vegam udaropasta vegam etan vegan yo vishayeta dhira sarvam apimam pridam cha sishyat. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur said that I only have 4 disciples, 2 hands and 2 legs. So the thing is, the first goal of our life is to make our body, our mind, our disciple. Forget about anyone, anything else. So that's why Rupa Goswami is saying that we have to do these things. Vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam. So this is tapasya, this is austerity, to tolerate, to tolerate. So when we tolerate, then slowly, as we increase our tolerance and the mind and the senses become more and more conducive to Krishna consciousness, then the heart becomes purified. The heart slowly becomes purified when we control all these urges. So when we perform austerity, when you do any kind of penance, we should always be conscious of why we're doing. Otherwise, if we're just attached to the penance, the austerity, then it leads to false pride. So we'll see from Bhagavad Gita what is real penance, what is real austerity. So actually, we'll read in Bhagavad Gita, it is said about penance, penance or austerity. So austerity is also mentioned, but I'm going to read what is penance, real penance. Okay, this threefold austerity performed with transcendental faith by men, not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. So austerity in goodness means performing activities simply for the pleasure of the Supreme, for the sake of the Supreme. And although it is said goodness, when one has no desire, one's desire is completely focused on Krishna, then it's pure goodness. And that's the highest level of austerity. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. So for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is in the mode of passion. Penance performed out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So these are 3 levels of penance, or you can say tapasya. So here Devahuti is performing tapasya, she is performing austerity to please her husband. So we are performing austerity to please Srila Prabhupada and please our spiritual master. So when we perform austerity simply to please them, to make them happy, then that is a perfect, it is a perfect ideal. So ultimately, it's all about inspiration. Krishna consciousness is all about inspiration. So Prabhupada writes, faith inspires initial surrender, and later, by the powerful influence of saintly association, one's faith deepens and becomes steady. Once faith becomes steady, all mental agitations and doubts clear up due to constant worship of the Lord. So, because I'm not qualified, but this Powerful influence of saintly association. This should be marked. This should be marked very deeply. So if we want to perform austerity penance to please Krishna, to please Guru, then I mean again I'm not qualified, but I'm quoting this because it's very important in the context of a devotee's life. See, when a devotee is going towards pure devotion, there is a time in a devotee's life that he has to face ups and downs. He has to go through Anishtita Bhakti. Um, Burijan Prabhu says that one has to pass through the desert, or the time or the space of not having Krishna's mercy, constantly crying for Krishna's mercy, but not unable to attain it. He has to pass through this time to actually enter Vrindavan. So a devotee, I mean, we cannot deny it. A devotee has to go through this difficult time. So during this difficult time, I was thinking, for some it may more, some it may be less, time, place, circumstance, day, whatever. And what to speak of, if we committed an offense, or we committed some aparad to someone, then when you pick up the beat, you're like, oh no, today is the day. Today is that unfortunate day that I'm going to get a lot of mercy. Today I have 16 rounds left. Okay, God Premanande. So, so, and sometimes we know who we offended also, but that day, but it's taking time, like even though he forgives, it's taking time. So although this is maybe a little high, but it's very helpful for our meditation. What is that? Uh, that Krishna tells the gopis that, my dear gopis, I cannot repay you. Just be happy with your austerities. Just be happy with your austerities. Which means what? Just be pleased with your own service. I cannot reciprocate to the extent that you have served me. So we have to take great pleasure and happiness in giving Krishna happiness, in serving Krishna. So the more and more we take pleasure in this activity, that of course we should not become proud, but the point is, when we focus on seva, then it really helps us to make progress in our spiritual life. Because some days will be good, some days will not be good, some days will be ecstatic, some days may not be so ecstatic, and we should be conscious of it. We should not be ignorant of that fact and think that no, it's, if I'm not doing good, it's okay, anyway. No, we should not be careless, we should not be careless, we should not be kind of how to say, should not ignore it. We should do whatever best we can. We should constantly try to do our best in every service, in every situation. But when we focus on serving, more and more we focus on serving, then that helps us to become steady in our Krishna consciousness. And now the real question is, what is seva? What is seva? Like, we're doing so much seva, but what is real seva? My spiritual master says, seva means when love for Krishna or appreciation for Krishna is expressed through activity, that is called service. So that is service. So he said very strongly, behind service, there is no love, there is no affection. Then it is not seva at all. So how will we be able to invoke that loving mood? How? Prabhupada says, by the powerful influence of saintly association. This is how it will be invoked. So what does it mean, powerful influence of saintly association? It means to digest the serving mood, because bhakti means service. Bhakti is not passive. Bhakti is not just about going to Krishna and glorifying Krishna and not doing any seva. No. Bhakti means, yes, you glorify Krishna, you pray to Krishna with a desire to serve him. All the great saints, they pray to the Lord. But ultimately, what is the goal of their prayer is to engage in his loving service. So Seva is the most important thing, because without seva, there's no relationship. A relationship cannot be formed, a relationship cannot be maintained, and there's no question of any mellow, any rasa. Because if there's no service, if you are there and I am here, and I just look at you and you look at me, how much rasa can there be, right? So many times, people in this world, that's the biggest difference between spirituality and material life. In material life, people want to enjoy rasa without seva. That's why there is a problem. They don't focus on seva, they just focus on rasa. But that doesn't work like that. But in spiritual life, they focus, even the liberated associate, they focus on seva, and rasa automatically fills the heart. So seva is the most important thing. So this powerful influence of saintly association means to absorb their seva bhav. And seva bhav means um, nam ruchi, means Bhagavad Katha Ruchi. This is all Seva Bhav, because ultimately all the words of Bhagavat, all the words of all the holy names, what is the prayer? Everything is a prayer. All the verses in Bhagavatam is a prayer actually. At least we can that is one way to understand. So it is a prayer. What is a prayer? Prabhupada said, "My dear Lord, my dear energy of Supreme Lord, kindly engage me in your service." Kindly engage me in your service, and kindly engage me specifically in the service of your devotees, 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 devotees. So that is a clear mood. All the Shastras, they simply, they proclaim this mood very boldly, that we want to serve Krishna, we want to serve Krishna and Krishna's associates under the guidance, under the shelter of his devotees. So by hearing about the moods, the seva, the moods of service of pure devotees again and again and again, then this, by their mercy, by their causeless mercy, their moods will enter into our heart when we serve. That is a perfection. See, nothing in Krishna consciousness is ever concocted. Nothing is concocted. Everything is, Prabhupada was saying yesterday in the lecture, Anu Kirtanam. Anu means to follow. Everything is following. Nothing is concocted. We are not going to do any service to Krishna which nobody has done. We are not going to offer any prayer to Krishna which is so amazing and incredible that nobody has done. And even though we may cook, or we may dress, or we may whatever, we may think it's very new, it's very unique, but in a split of a second, the varieties of service that Krishna receives in the spiritual world is million times more complicated, beautiful, attractive than we can even imagine. Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrama Sevyamana. This is happening in a split of a second. So many devotees are making arrangement for Krishna's sense, I mean, for Krishna's happiness in a split of a second. Like for us in this world, to arrange one program, it takes so much time. 3-4 hours, we have to cook, we have to make. But in Golok Vrindavan, it takes no time. And that's like just 1,000th of a day, It's like, it just goes like that, like Krishna has pastimes in one place and finish, and immediately next place, next place, next place, next place, next place. So that is a spiritual world. So especially the songs of the previous acharyas are very, very powerful. We must take shelter of them, because the songs of the previous acharyas, they contain seva bhav. They contain seva bhav. It's all about seva, 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 seva. So the songs of Gauraksha's Babaji Maharaj said, if you want Krishna Prem, just read 2 books, Prarthana and Prem Bhakti Chandra. So because the songs of previous acharyas, they are so pure. Even some songs may be very high, about high services, but ultimately, what is the root of all the prayer? Seva Abhilasha Kore Narottama Das. Seva Abhilasha Kore Narottama Das. So the only desire is to serve. So by constantly associating very deeply with the moods, because unless we associate with the mood, we are not actually getting the Sangha. So when we associate with the mood of a Vaishnava, the mood of a pure devotee, then our faith deepens. Then that becomes the, you can say, the fuel, uh, um, the engine. मुझे एक सेकंड में unlock कर देता हूँ. The engine or the fuel, the inspiration for us to serve. For us, everything is service. Chanting is also service. Why is chanting service? Chanting is service to our Guru. We are offering this service to Guru, and Guru is offering that service to Krishna. Hearing Bhagavatam is a service. We don't hear Bhagavatam to become expert in Bhagavatam. We don't, like in the material world, people hear or study to become expert, to become a master. Oh, I'm a master of fine arts. I'm a master in economics. But we can never become master of Krishna. We are just trying to serve Krishna by hearing because it pleases him. We're trying to speak about Krishna as a service to him, as a service to Srimati Radharani. So everything is a service. So again, coming back to the purport, penance or austerity is also a service. It's also a service to please Krishna, to invoke that mood. And ultimately, what is penance? The goal of penance is to understand, austerity is to understand how much we are separate from Krishna, how much we are separate from Guru, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that, because of the mood, that mood of penance, then it becomes easier for us to cry out for Krishna's mercy. So there are many examples of in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism of devotees who have practiced this penance. Like Raghunath Das Goswami is a shining example because he's a Prayojanacharya. So he taught how to perform penance. What is real penance? What is real austerity? Real austerity, I'm not qualified, but real austerity, Prabhupada says, is not vairagya, but it's virakti. And what is virakti in the real sense? He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite, He Nanda Sonukuta. So real austerity means to feel separation. To feel separation from the divine couple, to feel separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Oh, when will that day be mine that now I'm singing the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? When that day will come in my life that I will be able to associate with Rupa Goswami, associate with Sanatan Goswami, with Jiva Goswami, when I will be able to dance with them, when I will be able to bathe in their association, when I will be able to taste their remnants, when will I be able to take their foot dust? When will I be able to enter the Sankirtan pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And when will I engage in Sankirtan and chanting of the holy names for days, for months, for years, without thinking about eating, without thinking about sleeping? So when that day will come, when will I meet Haridas Thakur? When will I meet Nityananda Prabhu? When will I meet my spiritual master? When will I meet Srila Prabhupada? So when we can cry out for the mercy of Krishna, for the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like this, and then we can actually develop detachment from this material world. And that's what Raghunath Das Goswami showed. So again, there are different flavors. Like Raghunath Das Goswami was always very intense in his sadhana. Is very intense, and it is explained but that mostly he was in internal consciousness. Mostly he was internal. There was very little time he was externally conscious, and whatever time he was externally conscious, he used to speak Chaitanya Charitamrita, he used to meet with the devotees, but mostly he was in internal consciousness. On the other hand, we see like Sanatan Goswami was also very renounced, but his renunciation was, his mood was a lot, kind of lighter mood. So although he was so renounced, but at the same time, he used to spend time with all the devotees and he used to ask about their family affairs. How's it going? How's your family? How's it? So on and so forth. So different devotees express their devotion in different moods because bhakti means variety. Bhakti means variety. So ultimately, the goal is to become attached to Krishna. Prabhupada says austerity means to understand Krishna. So sometimes austerity may be difficult, sometimes austerity may be easy. Sometimes it's difficult to please Krishna, sometimes it may not be so difficult to please Krishna. Sometimes we have to do services which are difficult, that's what I meant to say. Sometimes we have to do services which are difficult, sometimes we can do services which are a little easier. But the goal is to please Krishna. The goal is to please Krishna. So that's why the most important thing in Krishna consciousness, in order to not become proud, is this verse. Very important verse. Just yeah. Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmashu, yukta swapnava bhodasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So generally, pride comes from identifying with the body and the mind. But if we are regulated in our activities, then it helps us to go beyond the mind and beyond the body and focus on our soul. And when we focus on our soul, naturally we become very humble. So that humility, that my Lord, my dear Gopi Janavallabha, although I know that I want to attain you, but because of the fact that I have so many anarthas, I have so many impurities, I feel I cannot attain you, but I still want to attain you. So when this mood is communicated, when this pain is communicated to the Lord through service, that becomes pleasing to him. That becomes pleasing to him. And that is real austerity, that is real devotional service. So that is the goal of spiritual life. The goal of spiritual life is to always long for Krishna, always long for Krishna's mercy, and at the same time constantly engage in his service. Like I'll end with this. Prabhupada said that the goal of spiritual life is to always remain engaged in the Lord's service, but at the same time to always feel separation from his mercy, from his compassion. So we are very fortunate that we are in the presence of so many devotees so many personalities who have so much compassion in their heart. So definitely one or the other associate will reciprocate with us, will be compassionate on us when we try to serve, when we try to please. Definitely will receive compassion from someone at some time. So we can focus on that point, how we can please. And that's why we have to read, we have to learn about how pure devotees, how they please the Lord. Like what is Narottam Das Thakur, what is Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking about himself? And when we read, if we are not feeling, then why we should ask ourselves why we're not feeling? Why we're not feeling what they are feeling? And when we ask that question, then we can understand how we can improve in our service attitude, how we can improve in our mood of Krishna consciousness. So, like Prabhupada said, that when you read the songs of Narottam Das Thakur, your heart cracks. This is Prabhupada saying, but I'm not experiencing that. Why not? So just by asking that question very genuinely and very sincerely, that brings a lot of mercy. So I'll end here. Does anyone have any question or comment?
What is the difference between austerity and penance? You said, is it the same, or austerity is done for pleasure of the Lord is called penance?
Yeah, in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, in the 17th chapter, it's mentioned differently, but yeah, in essence, I have to check the actual meaning of penance. Let me just check that dictionary meaning, because Prabhupada is very careful about using any word.
Because my understanding was that the words are interchangeable and they used in place synonyms, right? And usually are they?
Yeah, in my understanding of English language, it is same, but in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned. Yeah, it's actually in Bhagavad Gita also, the activities mentioned in both the categories, austerity and penance, is quite similar. It's quite similar. So yeah, but in Bhagavad Gita, when it comes to austerity, then it doesn't speak about austerity in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. In the 17th chapter, it speaks about what is austerity. So what is austerity of the body? What is austerity of speech? What is austerity of the mind? Yeah, and then, yeah, actually, it's used interchangeably, correct? It is.
And I think the last sentence, one of the last sentences you said was that if we don't feel the separation or we don't feel that feeling, I remembered of, I think, Gaur Govind Maharaj or Prabhupada sharing, this is the crying movement. And you have to cry for Krishna service or love for Krishna. And if you can't cry for Krishna, then cry for why you're not able to cry. Like that. So that is, I mean, it sounds like too far out, too far-fetched, but it is, that's the only way to proceed further. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you. Anyone has any question or comment on Zoom?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned that if a wife is a devotee and husband is not a devotee, if you cook with love and devotion and offer to Krishna, and that will change his mood. So
Yes.
what if his husband is a non-vegetarian?
Even then, it will work.
So non-vegetarian, we have to cook and offer? How
No,
it works?
no. What I'm saying is that he is eating non-vegetarian, but at the same time, we're offering some prasad to him also.
Okay,
So,
some cup, 1 or 2 items prasadam.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, if the prasad is cooked in a devotional mood, then yeah, it will have effect. Slowly, it will have effect. But of course, you can do many other things also. But yeah, beginning with offering prasad and yeah, coming the association of devotees, yeah, all these things. These two main things for new people, I feel these two things are very powerful. Prasad is very powerful, and sweet dealings are very powerful.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we will end here. Please forgive me if I spoke anything inappropriate. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna and with Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.